one more lesson that you're going to watch. I spent a lot of watching lessons, but I feel like hers are really good, and we will refer back to these, like you guys did today. You'll refer back to these throughout. So to make like my teaching transparent, I'm not with you in practicum. So while you guys can share your practical experiences, they're all only yours, and these videos are a way for us to all have kind of common teaching things to refer back to. So, this lesson, I told you we can use vocabulary briefly at the end to like review those words that we think are really important, students will be able to use and were essential to the story. This is going to be an example lesson from 4th grade social studies of how you can pre-teach vocabulary and concepts to kind of front load that knowledge, right? Because students come into your lessons with a wide variety of background knowledge. I grew up, my dad was a history major, and so while his job was a catering and air salesman, he probably should have been a history professor. He loved it, and so sitting at the dinner table was lots of conversations about politics, lots of conversations about history, and especially the Civil War, and all kinds of things. So I got a really, we took trips to Gettysburg and Washington, D.C. and different places like that. Other people don't have that kind of background knowledge, right? So whereas, some families might be really into other things like sports where I wouldn't have as much of a background on that. So you need to think about what type of background knowledge will your students need in relation to vocabulary in order to access text. And in social studies and science, it's really all about like concepts that are being addressed. And it's also a way to relate it to real world current event things. So this video, I don't know if we'll watch, probably not going to watch the whole thing because it gets kind of repetitive. It's actually a part 2. So this is how she's able to front load instruction. Something you should know is this website is free. So for some reason you really like this video, if you want to go back and watch, or in your future teaching careers, you want more information, this is all, it's explicitconstruction.org, and you can get all of these materials. So the 2 things that I want you to think about are, and I'll write these on the board so you can remember, what additional vocabulary practices does she use to extend student knowledge of vocabulary words? So she's going to do some things that we haven't talked about yet. And then what are other good things that you kind of see her do? Now,
I have a question. Does she like work at this school and then bounce around the classrooms, or does she just
she's a professor who has written a book. And so she goes into these schools who are already using her training methods, and she's teaching the classroom. She's not their usual teacher. That's a really good one.
Yeah, I was just wondering because it's like this grade.
Oh yeah, and
she like pops in. It sounds like she's like introducing herself sometimes. So I'm like, do these kids even know her? Like,
they probably did some like get to know you. Yeah, this is in Arizona. We've seen it in Hawaii, Kansas. So.
Because it's
She's a professor at University of Arizona.
No one knows.
What's her name? Anita Archer. Yes, she's a textbook author.
Okay. Stephanie just said that and I didn't believe her, so now she's
She's a
right.
textbook author.
No, she's right. Stephanie, you're correct.
So you're getting prepared for reading a new passage next week. I think is the best one in the 4th grade Treasures book. And I want you to read these words to yourself. When you know what the words are, put your thumb up. Don't do it till you know all the words though. Okay, down nice and low like this. It doesn't have to be in the air. Down, down, down. Right here, okay? Excellent. Okay, read it with me and go. How Ben Franklin stole the lightning. See, now I'm already fascinated because this man, what's his name, everyone? Ben Franklin. I think he is one of the most interesting people in American history. And it is about how he captured the what, everyone? The lightning. So we're going to learn words, and we're going to learn a bunch about Ben Franklin today, too. And sound out this word, put your thumb up nice and low as soon as you know it, but don't shout it.
I love it.
And the word is? Yes, and part of speech is a So this is an action word. I invent something. And we are going to read this together. Keep your voice with mine. If you invent something, such as a machine or a process, you are the first person to think of it or make it. So if I'm the very first person who thinks up an idea of something I'm going to make or something I'm going to do, then you would say, well, you did what, everyone? You would invent. You would invent it. But you have to be the first person. So if I go home tonight and I say, oh, I'm going to make a really good chocolate cake, and I have a recipe that my grandmother used and my mother used and my sister used, did I invent the chocolate cake, yes or no? No. If I go home and say, well, you know, I had enough chocolate cake, I think I am going to do a cake that has limes in it. Yeah, I think limes in it. And maybe a little bit of pepper. And it's a brand new recipe. Would I invent that cake, yes or no? Yes. Probably because no one else has ever tried that combination. So if I'm the first person to do it, I invent. Now, a synonym, does that mean same or different? Which one, everyone? Same. So, other words that we could use for invent is what, everyone? Create or develop. Okay, and so we're going to know that this word goes with Ben Franklin. Read the sentence with me and go. Ben Franklin invented the Franklin stove. So it was a stove that was in your home. Now, do you think this is in modern times today, yes or no? No, he lived way back. But it was used to warm houses in the winter. But he invented other things. Read it with me. Ben Franklin invented this musical instrument. And so I've never seen this one in person. And I am so curious now because there were symphonies, musical, that were written to use this instrument. But no one plays it now, but it's sure interesting. Well, here are some words that go with invent. And get ready to echo read the word. Invent. Invented. Inventions. Inventions. I'm going to make something new. It's going to be a what, everyone? Invention. And if I did it, I would be the inventor. So all of those words have the word invent in it because they're all relatives of the word and have similar meanings. Let's just echo read it one more time. Invent. Invented. Inventions. Inventor. I'm going to read when I stop. Say the next word. Would you like to something been and born in 1706? Many. One of his was the Franklin. Ben Franklin is a very famous inventor. And there is one of the pictures that we have of him. He was painted a number of times in his life, and probably not with the flag behind him. Now, in the story, we learn that he can do so many things. And there are a whole bunch of words for whom, everyone? Ben Franklin. Now, some of them in what letters, everyone? C-I-A-N. Okay? So get ready. Ben Franklin played, my turn. Ben Franklin played music. He was a musician. He worked with electricity. He was an electrician. Excellent. Now, he was also involved in politics. He was a politician. So, when we see these letters at the end of the word, it's often referring to a person. So he was a what, everyone? A musician. He was an electrician. He was a politician. But that's not all. Okay. Ben Franklin loved to write. He was a printer. He helped print a newspaper. He was a printer. He liked to do experiments. He was an experimenter. So, sometimes ER at the end of the word tells me it's a word about a person. But that's not all. Oh my goodness. So it could end in IST. Okay? Ben Franklin drew cartoons for newspapers. He was a cartoonist. Yes. He studied science. He was a scientist. Look at all those words. I mean, this is a man who was an inventor, a musician, a printer, so many things. And you're going to learn what he drew as a cartoonist, what he discovered as a scientist. Well, this word, you'll know it. The word is mischief. What word, everyone? Mischief. Put your hand on your desk, and we're going to say the parts of words. We're going to tap it out and say the parts with me. Mischief. Again, mischief. One more time. Mischief. It's a what, everyone? A noun. Hey, read the definition with me. Mischief is something amusing that can cause trouble. So amusing is another word for funny. Something that someone does is really funny, but it might get them in trouble. And then we say it is mischief. I'm going to bet that at least once in your life, you have been involved in a little bit of mischief. Something kind of funny, but it could have gotten you in a little what, everyone? Trouble. Yes. Well, here's an animal. Think about which one I'm going to show you, who I think gets in a lot of mischief. What do you think? A kitten, right? Okay. And so you look at that kitten and you laugh at what they do, but read the sentence, everyone. This kitten can get into a lot of mischief. Absolutely. If you do something that may be humorous, may be, as it says here, a little what, everyone? Amusing, but it causes a little trouble. We say, you got into mischief. And we almost always say it that way, that he got into mischief, or she got into mischief. Say it, everyone. She got into mischief. Well, here is a drawing of young Ben Franklin. I'm going to read when I stop, say the next word. When he was young, Ben Franklin worked as a newspaper printer. Ben got into mischief when he pretended to be a woman and an advice column for the newspaper. So, he worked with the publisher of the newspaper, and he didn't tell him that he was writing this advice column. So someone writes it and says, what can I do about my husband who never picks up his dirty laundry? And he was only 14, and he'd write, well, I would suggest you get a new husband. And then it would go in the paper. And then everybody kept writing and writing and writing and writing because they just loved this column. And then they found out he was a boy and he was only 14. He got into mischief.
All right, we're going to stop there. Okay. So, what other things? So I hope you saw how she went through this. She introduced the words, provided an explanation, illustrated examples, and then we just done this check her understanding. What other things did you see her do to extend their knowledge or support their knowledge, Morgan?
She went over how the words can like change the meaning and change what part of speech it is. Like she went over how it could be a noun or a verb, also just by adding a different ending to it.
Right, and that totally changes the meaning of the word or the part of speech, how to use it appropriately, right? Stephanie?
Also putting him in those little like paragraphs and reading and having them read the word and kind of seeing it in context.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Yeah, partner?
Going over synonyms for the word was very helpful for them to kind of make a connection.
Yeah, so it makes a connection to if they already knew that synonym, or if they didn't know that synonym, now they do. Right? Good. Right. What other sort of good practices did you see in this video?
Caitlin, or Katie, sorry.
Like the fill in the blank, kind of like choral responding. So like, let's read along, kind of thing. She'd say
Right,
it's
so
my
forces
turn,
them.
but when I stop, you're gonna keep going.
Right, and if you notice, she also said, when they read along together, she said, keep your voice with my voice. So she always paired very quickly what the expectation or what the instruction was. And the students seem to know, what is an echo read, what is a fill in the blank read, what is reading along with me. And so that's the importance of teaching students all those response modes and keeping it consistent, and then they're able to actively participate.
And like a lot of our videos, just like a partner system, and I think like keeps, like they're not just listening to the teacher, they're also listening to each other, so it keeps them more engaged and like more wanting to do it.
Right, because remember, one of the principles of explicit instruction is less teacher talk and more student talk. The more the one who's talking is usually the one who's thinking and learning. Okay, so what I'm going to have you do, so what we're going to do now, just so you can see the sequence, I'm going to pass out a paper that has the vocabulary instruction routine on it. Okay, you're going to choose that one word where you have your definition, the one word you chose, and you're going to decide how you might introduce the word, how you would provide a student-friendly explanation of the word, what examples you would use, examples and non-examples, and how you would check the student's understanding. Okay? Once we only spend about 5 minutes on this, because you've kind of already done most of this thinking, okay, the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to pass out the ESC lesson plan template, and then once we have kind of this, like the graphic organizer pre-planning, you and your partner are going to, you don't have to fill this out necessarily, you're going to think through what would this look like on the ESC template. I'm going to go through the different sections, okay? Then we'll briefly go through the rules and your okay? So go ahead and find wherever you have your word written down. This has got 2 things on the back. You're going to want to get this blank. And you're just doing one word. I'll get one each.
Oh, that's MREA. Is it the post on the Facebook?